What is going on, Stallions? Today we're going to be unboxing, setting up, and reviewing a USB dynamic mic that looks a whole heck of a lot like a Rode SM7B. This microphone currently can be had for $100 on Amazon, and for that price, this thing well exceeded my expectations. Sounds pretty damn good in my opinion. Come join me, let's get this thing out of its box, get it optimized with the best VST plugins to sound oh so sweet. Yeah, that sounds good. Then go over the pros and the cons because nothing is perfect. You sound pretty damn good there, brother. Let's get it. The box is a clean, understated design, and most importantly, it is packaged incredibly well with some very dense, protective laser cut foam on the top and bottom. You do also have a full color instruction manual. I don't know how to read, so I forgo touching this thing. You do also have a 10-foot USB-C cable that is incredibly flexible, and a stock shock mount that feels a little bit plasticky, but does a really good job of minimizing reverberation from desk bumps. You get an all-metal stand or tripod with removable rubber feet. I don't know why you would want to remove them, but you can. It is incredibly sturdy, and the legs kick out quite far, so this thing is stable. However, you are going to want to get yourself a boom arm, considering this is a dynamic mic, not a condenser, so you do need to get this close to your mouth. 4 inches will do the job, ladies. I do have 3 boom arms that I have tested and stand behind in the description below next to this microphone. Now, I do like the design of the stock shock mount. I think it looks incredibly handsome, and most importantly, it's compact or small, which is good for streaming. You don't want to be losing peripherals when you're trying to peek somebody around a corner in Call of Duty. One of my favorite features of this microphone, it does have a haptic mute button, so there's no physical button that causes a big jarring boom or click. All you need to do is lightly tap. Same thing with turning the RGB on and off. Yes, I did say RGB. We all know what adds frames per second to your game. It's got the lights on the back. There is also a large gain knob that does a very good job of adjusting gain on the fly, and there is a 3.5mm headphone jack on the bottom to monitor your voice in real time, lag-free. Now, like I mentioned during the unboxing, there is a large gain knob, and it does have a very nice resistance and feels quite sturdy. You also don't get a whole heck of a lot of handling noise when you are adjusting the gain with that knob. Now, you can turn RGB on and off, and I would recommend just keeping it off, considering you cannot cycle through modes such as static colors or pulsating. It's just rainbow spectrum, which is a little bit too flashy for my flavor. Since this is a USB microphone, you don't need some fancy XLR mixer or audio interface. All you need is a good set of vocal cords and a USB cable, and you're ready for a podcast, live stream, or YouTube. Alrighty, Stallions, over here at the desktop with the Fifine K658D in its default settings right out of the box. This bad boy is plug and play as it is a USB microphone, so you simply plug it into a USB port on your PC, it installs all the necessary drivers, and you're up and running within a couple of seconds. I only have 2 working brain cells left over, and I was able to get this up and running in about 5 seconds, which is longer than I usually last. So I generally sit quite a bit closer to my desk. However, I want you to be able to see the rump end or the tuchus of the Fifine with its RGB lights on. If that's a little bit too much for your viewers, you can turn it off, but I know a lot of you streamers out there love the RGB. Now, I would like to see different modes that you could cycle through, but unfortunately, it's just rainbow spectrum cycling or off, in which case I would probably leave it off. Now, if you could set one static color, selection of colors, that'd be great. Now, we're going to make this sound quite a darn bit better, but this is what it sounds like right out of the box. Let me hit you with some low notes. He's shooting low. Come on, give it everything you got, 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 everything you got. So listening to that back, a pretty decent sound profile right out of the box. So I just realized I have my lights on the brightness setting that I use when I'm doing my unboxing, which is substantially higher than when I'm just sitting here doing commentary at my desk. So I was wondering why my corneas were getting scorched out, and it's because I was staring into the sun. So like I mentioned, this microphone is plug and play as it is USB. However, there are a couple of settings that you're going to want to go ahead and optimize. Down here, you're going to right click and open sound settings. Now, as soon as you plug in a USB microphone, it will default the output and input to the new microphone. If it doesn't, you can select it manually here. Now, output, you only want to leave this as the microphone if you are going to be using the 3.5mm headphone jack on the bottom of a microphone to monitor your desktop sounds, i.e. your games and movies, whatever sounds playing through your computer, as well as a real-time monitor of your voice. So if you like to hear yourself repeated back into your headphones. I like very minimal referencing or monitoring, if at all. So if you do plan on using external desktop speakers, or maybe a set of headphones plugged directly into your PC, or maybe you have a headset like an Astro A50 or a SteelSeries Arctis that has one of those base stations, then your output is going to be selected to that, and your input, of course, is going to be selected as your new microphone. Now, I'd like you to come down here to device properties, and by default, this is always some wonky number. Put it at about 70, because this microphone is kick-ass enough to have an external gain knob on it. Anytime you see a knob on a USB microphone, it's usually going to be one of two things: headphone volume level or gain. But you're going to put this at about 70%, and what that allows you to do is use the gain knob on there, which I'm at about 50% right now, but I can make the microphone substantially quieter or louder without having to go into my Windows settings. I can just do it on the fly from that knob that's on the microphone. If you are adjusting it, you don't really get a whole heck of a lot of handling noise, which is awesome. That is partially because of how sturdy and solid the microphone is, and that is also because of how good that stock shock mount is. And falling right in line with that, you actually have a touch sensitive or haptic mute button, which is an awesome feature, because every time you press a physical button on a microphone, you get a loud pop or boom inside the body of the microphone reverberating around. Even on high-end USB microphones like the Blue Yeti. I used the Blue Yeti Blackout for almost 2 years. I hated that. Every time I muted my mic, you would hear a quite audible pop that was not enjoyable for the listeners whatsoever. As we're here, if I just... You can't hear a dang thing I'm saying. I could be talking mad shit. Your mother is a 2-bit... I have no idea what I'm saying, and you don't get a big pop or anything because, well, there's no physical button. You just tap your finger on there. That's great. Same thing with the RGB on and off button on the back. That is also haptic as well. So we've heard what this microphone sounds like in its stock default missionary position settings, but let's go ahead and make it sound a little bit more spicy, shall we? Now, in order to get a microphone registered in OBS or Streamlabs OBS, it is virtually identical. You are going to come down here to the settings icon cog, and you are going to come over here to audio. Then in microphone/auxiliary, you are going to select the name of the microphone, which we have covered is the Fifine. And then I have desktop audio disabled because I generally use my XLR mixer, which handles desktop sound as well. However, if you are using a USB microphone, which we are currently now, you are going to come over here and select default, and that will use whatever output for your Windows PC, which if we select it right now, you will see we now have a second bar over here. So if I play a Windows 10 sound, as you can see, it's registered over here, and you can control this slider to make sure that your game isn't overpowering the sound of your voice, or if you have a separate bar for Discord chat, your teammates aren't overpowering your voice as you are the star, the center of your stream or YouTube videos. But we don't really need desktop sound for now, so I'm going to go ahead and deactivate that. Boop. Now, OBS and Streamlabs OBS do have some plugins built in. If you come over here to filters, that's this little cog icon right here, and come down here to filters, you can go to edit filters. Now, there's nothing applied currently, but if you click on this plus button, you will see that there are some stock ones here. You have a compressor, you have a noise gate, which is used to cut out background sounds such as your PC and ceiling fans, and then you have a compressor, which basically takes your quietest sounds and amplifies them, and your loudest sounds and reduces them slightly to where you're at one consistent volume, which is critical for headphone listeners of your stream. My eyes are so watery right now. I feel like I'm crying. I'm not. I'm actually really happy to be here, but my eyes just keep watering. Now, these plugins are okay, however, they are missing some crucial ones like an equalizer, and most importantly, you cannot monitor these in real time to make adjustments, so I like to use what is called Reaper plugins. It is a free download. It is a VST set of plugins. It's around 4 megabytes, so a very small file size, and we'll go ahead and download and install those now and make ourselves sound, well, like we're ready for the radio. Two things I do want to quickly mention before I forget. You do want to keep this microphone around 5 to 6 inches away from your mouth, as it is a dynamic mic, not a condenser mic. It is not a very sensitive capsule receiver, so you want to make sure that you are actually relatively close to this microphone, and that's a good benefit because it won't pick up a lot of keyboard clicking and whatnot for you streamers with you mechanical gaming keyboards and whatnot. Even the controllers with the paddles on the back that you fancy esports kids out there use, it won't really pick that up as much, especially if you attach a nice little software VST noise gate like we're gonna do. The actual receiver for this microphone is on the top. You don't need to talk into the front of it like my Blue Ember, you just talk into the top of it. And the other thing I want to mention is this does have full compatibility with Mac OS as well. If you're one of our Apple brothers and sisters out there, this will work for you. So getting Reaper plugins up and running is incredibly simple. You are going to Google search Reaper plugins. The first result is Reaper.fm, and you are going to download the 64-bit package right here, or 32 if you're still rocking a 32-bit OS. We'll just put it on the desktop. It's fine. Now, this is a very small file size at just under 4 megabytes, and that includes all the plugins. Now, you can manually uncheck what you don't want to use. However, you probably don't even know what you don't want to use yet, so I would just leave all of these checked. And the most important thing here is that you do not change this default file path. Leave this as is. Program files, VST plugins, replugins, leave that, because OBS and Streamlabs OBS are automatically going to look for VST plugins in that folder, so don't change it. Awesome, they are installed now. So over here in the cog icon, go to filters, go to edit filters, go to the plus, and filter type. These are all the stock ones here, except for down here, VST 2X plugins. These are third-party plugins that you install from the internet, like we just did. And the order that you want to apply these in is NEC, in case you ever forget. So it's noise gate, EQ, and compressor. NEC, N-E-C. So we're just going to name this one noise gate. Or you can name it NG or whatever you want, gate, if you wanted to. Hit done, and then you're going to select a plugin. We have all these .dll files, and that is the third-party VSTs that we use. So we're going to select the noise gate, and all of these have clever names like regate and restream and recomp, because, you know, they're Reaper plugins. They're going with the brand or whatever. Redelay. So we're going to select regate. And now open plugin interface, and it is going to pop open a Windows window, and this is a noise gate over here. And what this is going to do is going to cut out any background noise, like your HVAC systems, your air conditioning, your PC fans, sometimes keyboard clicks, sometimes not so much if you have a condenser mic. So when I stop talking, you will see this green bar here rest around what is called my noise floor, and I'm going to go ahead and lift this threshold up just slightly over that. You don't want to go too high, because happen actually cut out voice. It'll cut out your voice, and you don't want that. Testing. This is the quietest I would ever talk on stream. Now we can go ahead and click close. Now we're going to add our next one, which, you guessed it, equalizer. So come down here to VST plugin again. Just name this bad boy EQ. ReQ. Clever. Open plugin interface. And if it doesn't pop up the window, which sometimes it doesn't, you'll see it down here in your toolbar. I like the visual representation that you get from these Reaper plugins, and you do not get that with OBS or Streamlabs OBS stock out of the box plugins, so that's very nice that they add that here. Now, as you can see, if I drag these around, we don't have a whole heck of a lot of control. Let's change that. Over here in type, select band. And now we got a little more control here. And what we're gonna do is we're gonna boost up bass in our voice a little bit to give us that deep radio-esque presence. We're gonna cut down the mids, which are generally a little bit hollow and tinny and don't really add any vibrance or punch to your voice. Speaking of punch, the high end, the treble. You want to have a little bit of crisp clarity in the top end. Let's go ahead and boost that up as well. We want to change all these to band. Band, awesome. So cut that mid end, a little bit more bass, a little less mids, a little bit more treble or high end. These are pretty safe settings for 90% of voices out there. Now we're going to go ahead and add compressor, which is by far the most complicated or difficult one to set up. Again, it's a VST plugin, compressor. Now, not the one all the way down here. There is one that says Re-X Comp. It's just the traditional recomp up here. Now, you want to drag this slider down to your average voice when you're streaming or recording a YouTube video. So you don't need to be screaming, raging. You do not need to be whispering, just your average speaking voice. For me, this is my average speaking voice. And as you can see, this slider is right around there. Technically, I should have done this first. You want to go ahead and set your ratio. A good standard is a 4:1 ratio, kind of the golden standard for a compressor. Now, it doesn't matter that I set this slider before the ratio. However, it's just good practice to go ahead and set your ratio first. And now, as you can see, if I get loud, test, it is actually cutting down my voice, which is awesome. If you notice that your compressor is cutting down your loud sounds, but it is not amplifying your quiet sounds, so maybe you're sneaking an Escape from Tarkov listening for footsteps or something, and you're whispering like this, it's a little bit too quiet for your stream to hear what you're saying, you can click on auto makeup over here, and that will kind of boost up your voice over here. Now, what I have noticed is that auto makeup tends to be more useful or work better with condenser mics, but with dynamics like this, whether it's an XLR or a USB dynamic, leaving it unchecked seems to yield better results. And how you can tell that these are pretty solid settings right here is when I'm speaking at a normal volume, I'm in the yellow right here. You know, high green into the yellow is fine. You don't want to be deep into the red because then you are peaking or clipping, and that is not good. But generally in OBS and Streamlabs OBS, you want your voice to be in the yellow, because any lower than that, if you're in the high greens here usually, it's too quiet. And if you're in the red, that's bad. You're clipping right about here. Even when I'm talking relatively quietly, I'm still hitting the yellow. And when I get loud, he is peeking me out of the corner. It cuts down those loud sounds, which is very important. Start raging or yelling or talking loudly, you do not want to blow out the eardrums of your headphone listeners out there. Now, if you feel like for your preference, it's a little bit too aggressive, the compressor, what you can do, if you feel like it's intruding on your voice too much and making it sound a little bit too artificial and not organic or human or very normal, I guess you could say, what you can do is raise this threshold up, or you can actually increase the attack time by a few milliseconds. And by increasing the attack time, what it does is takes longer in milliseconds here for the compressor to actually kick in and do its job. The rest of these I would not worry about. I can do a more in-depth advanced tutorial down the road if anybody's interested in it, but the people that actually care about these settings generally are going to be using XLR microphones and mixers or USB audio interfaces, in which case they're not going to be using these software VST plugins. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. That sounds good. And to make sure that all three of these filters are active on your voice, besides the fact that it's a dead giveaway that you can see if you get loud and it's not clipping, or if you stop talking completely and there's no green bar here whatsoever because it's cutting out your fan noise and whatnot. If you need a visual representation to make sure that these are active, if you click on the cog icon, you will see filters. It now says parentheses 3, because we do have 3 active filters. And if you need further confirmation of that, click on edit filters and you will see them. And if you want to reorganize the order of them, you can drag them around. But again, we want the noise gate, then the EQ, then the compressor. This is with the gain at 70 in Windows 10 and 3/4 on the knob. This is 100% on the knob. Test. This is 50% halfway with the knob, still at 70 in Windows 10. This is 1/4 of the way on the knob. And this is turned down all the way on the knob. All right, going vertical with the Fifine over here. What are my final thoughts on this bad boy? Well, I would have to say, actually, let's make this a little bit closer to my mouth hole over here. Bingo was his name-o. That's actually very intrusive in my face, isn't it? We'll put you right there at the old mouth hole. The old watering hole. So this microphone retails for $120 on Amazon. However, there is a $20 coupon at the landing page currently, and I think that's on there most of the time, so we'll just say a $100 microphone. I have tested several condenser microphones, both USB and XLR, in that price point. This well exceeds the standard. First of all, stylistically or appearance-wise, aesthetics, cosmetics, whatever you want to call it, I think it looks incredibly good. It looks a lot like a Rode Pod mic. It feels incredibly durable and rugged. The haptic mute, super sweet, because you don't have to listen to a loud pop every time you hit mute. The fact that there is an actual gain knob that does have a nice resistance or weight to it as you turn it. The shock mount is actually pretty good. Now, if I bump my desk, you are still going to get a little bit of reverberation. That's because my boom arm is attached directly to the desk that I'm sitting at, which is not ideal. I should be attached to like a side table or something. The shock mount does a good job though. If there was no shock mount on there, it was just mounted directly to my boom arm, those would have sounded like miniature earthquakes in your ear canals. So what are the cons, areas of improvement, or shortcomings of this microphone? First of all, I do wish that the sound profile had a little bit more of a rich, warm tone. Now for the exact identical settings that I have used, there are other microphones that have a little bit more of that bassy radio-esque presence and whatnot, and I can get there with a little bit more tweaking and whatnot, but it just seems like this microphone wants to sound how it does right now, which is by no means bad. I mean, this sounds pretty damn good in my opinion. But I can't pinpoint it, but listening back to a lot of these sound clips, just seems like it doesn't have quite that same rich bassy tone to it with the exact same settings that I use on other microphones. Does it sound bad? Absolutely not. In fact, I would go as far to say that it does sound good. And other than that, I do wish they either removed the RGB functionality completely and, use that $5 or $10 from them stripping that feature and pass that savings on to the customer, or actually have the RGB have some selectable modes, even if that's just 7 different static colors and different brightnesses. That'd be great. You don't need to have a software program to control independent zones or anything like that. I wouldn't even expect that in a $100 USB microphone, but it would be nice if when you're cycling through the modes, you had some options other than just on with a very intrusive, very flashy rainbow spectrum, or completely off, which in my opinion, I think it actually looks really good off. And then you get that little subtle glow of green or red on the side. Very good USB dynamic microphone. Very good long-term microphone if you dial your settings in just right and you don't need to have an XLR microphone because of the content that you create. This definitely is a microphone you could use for many, many years, and nobody's going to complain about your audio quality on stream or on your YouTube videos. They're going to be like, whoa, you sound pretty damn good there, brother. It sounds good. I like it. Fifine, thank you for sending this out. Also, the included stand or tripod is very good. However, I do strongly recommend, Arnold Schwarzenegger here, strongly recommend that you get a boom arm, because it is going to put it close to your mouth, which a dynamic mic really needs to be. It's not like a condenser where you can crank up the gain and be across the room. You really do need to be right up on it, sucking on the mouthpiece almost. So not to mention, you will sound a lot better, and it looks really good too on stream. You know, when you're on a nice boom arm, people are like, "Ooh, that's fancy. This guy's got a clean setup." And I like that. If you enjoyed this video, you found some value in it, liking it will help it to get seen by more gamers. This information will reach and assist them as well. Subscribe for more content like this. I cover news in the gaming community and industry, as well as tutorials helping you get set up streaming and YouTubing. And I do honest gaming peripheral reviews, keyboards, mice, headsets, controllers, mics. And I'll see you tomorrow, because I upload daily, like most of the time. Peace.